You're listening to the Build From Here podcast, a podcast for the hunter and sporting dog enthusiast alike. Join your host, Joshua Parvin, as he interviews retriever owners and discusses the trials and triumphs that lead to a great gun dog. Build From Here is presented by Cornerstone Gun Dog Academy, online resources to help you train your retriever. Now, your host, Joshua Parvin.
Welcome to the Build From Here podcast. On this episode, it's my great honor to be introducing you to Marshall Anliker, an incredible CGA member. He's been with us for a long time, a founding member. He's been, I think you're on your second dog now. We're going to have so many good stories to talk with Mr. Marshall here. So much good things to cover, but I just got to say it's awesome to see, before we bring him on, that to have people be with us for so long. Cornerstone's been around since the fall of 2016 at the recording of this. And, here we are in 2025, or wrapping up 2025. And just to see people stay with us for that long and then continuing to train dogs because of the lifetime access and all that, it's absolutely incredible. So without further ado, let's bring Mr. Marshall on. How you doing? Welcome aboard.
I'm awesome, Josh. Thanks for having me. Privileged to be here.
Man, it's my honor. I remember we had a film with you and Moose from back in the day. Maybe we can link that up somewhere. It's definitely still out there. Definitely an inspirational film. Y'all had a good goose hunt on that film.
Believe it or not, we bang them up a bit around here. Yeah, we're not in it for the practice. We're not in it for the practice.
Yeah, if you're going to do it, you got to do it right. You got to go all in.
Absolutely.
Well, let's get a little bit about you before we get to your background and history. Just tell us, for the family, the Cornerstone family, and for those that are just, podcast listeners, where are you from? What do you currently do? And we'll go from there.
Yeah, so I was born in Southwest Kansas, grew up an outdoorsman, thanks to my great-grandfather really taking me under his wing from a young age, and he effectively gave me the bug. Carried that through high school, went to Kansas State University, where I really fell in love with waterfowl hunting, and today I live in Overland Park, Kansas. I'm one of the owners of a roofing company here called Assurance Roofing and Exteriors. We do roofing and siding and gutters, both residential and commercial, across the state of Kansas and about half of Missouri.
Wow. Yeah, that's and there's a lot of that out there. I guess now that I think about it, when I've been up in Kansas, you don't see as many brick homes, a lot of siding, as I was driving up through there. So that's
Correct.
Big business.
It's pretty spendy to put brick on. So a lot of people up here fall into the McMansion category, so they like that cheap stuff. I mean, we do all of it, but I try to push people away from the cheap stuff, just because I'm a buy once, cry once guy, right?
Amen.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome, man. So you fell in love. What was a defining moment for you in college that really made you fall in love with waterfowling?
Man, I actually kind of have to take a step a little bit further back. So my true fall in love moment with waterfowl hunting was when I was 12 years old. I was hunting in a pit blind in Phillipsburg, Kansas, with my great-grandfather, my dad, and two friends of ours. And it was a blizzard that morning, and there were only two geese that flew in, and I shot one and my great-grandfather shot the other. And that was my first goose and his last goose, because 9 days later he died.
Oh, man.
So it was truly like a proverbial passing of the torch. I catch a lot of crap from my family because he was ate up with the outdoors, and I basically just picked up where he left off. But then at Kansas State, the public land access around the university for waterfowl hunting in general is just next level great. So I was one of those guys that stacked his classes on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday, and made sure I shot a limit of ducks before I went to class.
Man, that's awesome. Wow.
Yeah.
That's a powerful story too. I think a lot of people can resonate with that, especially as they age. A lot of times the passing of the torch is a real thing. And those fond memories, and then you move on, and then you keep going and pass it on to the next generation. And that's what it's about, is making sure that we continue this tradition, because it's deep rooted, and there's really very few of us when you think of waterfowlers in general, and hunters as far as the overall population. I was talking to this about this with somebody the other day. Um, we were talking about, just what you eat, or where you get the grocery store, organic versus non-organic and all that. Then we started talking about, actually getting your meat. And I've got a friend that has never done that. And I think I'm going to have the opportunity to take them out and show them where the meat actually comes from, what that process is like, actually going through the process of cleaning the animal and then processing it yourself. And it's just amazing to think about the society we live in, and nothing wrong with it. But you walk in the grocery store, you pick up a packaged piece of meat, and it's delicious. Don't get me wrong. You take it home, cook it, and that's that. But that's not the way it's always been. There you have to work for it to get it.
Absolutely. The perspective changes the further away from the dirty work, right? Everyone enjoys a T-bone steak, but very few people have the gumption to produce cattle and slaughter them, right? The same way that we harvest waterfowl or any kind of game. Yeah, but to speak to that, one of my favorite things to do in college was take somebody hunting that had never hunted before. Maybe my favorite experience was a guy. He and I did not see the world the same way. Very different politically. And one morning I was headed out, and he was still up from the night before, fraternity party. And he decided that, hey, you have an extra set of waders. I want to go hunting with you. So he just came along and hung out, and he started to understand our perspective a little bit. And props to him for, taking the chance to come out and actually experience nature at that level with us. It might have been a little bit of alcohol induced, a little bit of liquid courage. It might have been what got him over the hump, but one of the guys that used to put up, a stink about me hunting decides to go hunting with me, and he changed his perspective. So that was a
Wow.
pretty special story as well.
It is, if you think about that, it's very perspective shifting. Like, you get out there, it's a very intimate experience, and you get to share it with a small group of people, whether you're deer hunting, waterfowling. Let's say 6 to 8 dudes tops. Sometimes 3 or 4 dudes. You're sitting out there, you're watching sunrises together, and you're doing something together, accomplishing something that's not easy. Takes effort, a lot of work. So that's pretty cool that it changed. When you say it changed his perspective, he just couldn't see why you loved it so much, and then getting out there, he's like, oh, I could see how someone could enjoy this. Or
Exactly. You nailed it. That's exactly what it was. And I said, do you want to go again? He goes, no, one time was good, but I appreciate you taking me out.
That's hilarious. Oh man. Well, that sounds like you had a pretty amazing college experience and able to hunt and all that. I did the same thing with my dog training. I made sure that my classes lined up to where they were, not too early in the morning, so I could do some work with the dogs, and then also get off in time to continue that out. And then also made sure there was never a class on a Friday, because unless it was online, other than that, you got to be out there. Got to be out there getting after it.
100%.
Well, how did you get into the roofing business and the exterior business?
Oh boy. So kind of a roundabout way. Started working in construction when all my friends were being lifeguards at pools and mowing lawns. I was working for a general contractor building custom homes, and decided that that's the career route I wanted to go, is get into construction. And that's why I went to Kansas State. At Kansas State, I got a construction science and management degree. Moved to Colorado, built high rises and resort hotels for a few years. And at that point, my wife and I had gotten married. And we got tired of Denver's traffic, moved back to Kansas City, where I did more of the same, right? So I was building hospitals and other commercial structures as a project manager around Kansas City, and met my business partner, Don Scott. And man, actually, we met through Labradors originally, but were introduced by a fraternity brother of mine, Kyle Williams. I don't know if you know Kyle or not.
Oh, Mr. Kyle. Yes, we do.
Yeah.
I know him real well.
Yeah, so Kyle and I are fraternity brothers, and he's good buddies with Don. We were actually on our way back from, I think, the second Southern Oak Kennels Summit, and I expressed my frustration with my current role, and Kyle just turned to me and said, I think Don's looking for a business partner. You might talk to him. And we hit it off, and kind of the rest is history. Now we're seven years into a partnership and looking towards 8.
Man, that is really
Yeah.
cool. It's amazing
Yeah.
how those connections just line up, and a lot can happen when you meet. That's kind of same Cornerstone got started just through through some Labradors and meeting a couple of people, and that's how we ended
Yep.
up here, and now that's how you and I ended up on this call. It's it's
Absolutely.
crazy.
Everything is a sequence of events.
That's right. Well, so as a waterfowler,
Yeah.
speaking of a sequence of events, let's get to your events and your journey as a waterfowler. Were dogs in the picture with your granddad or in college? When was a dog first introduced to the picture for you in waterfowling?
So growing up, I always wanted a hunting dog, right? Now, growing up in Southwest Kansas, we hunted way more upland than anything else. But frankly speaking, my parents weren't really big outdoorsmen, right? And so there was never a big push for us to have our own dog. Like my great grandfather had Brittany's, and they were the worst hunting dogs you'd ever seen in your life. I've never seen a pointer blow up more fields in a row than his Brittany's. I think he had 5 or 6 of them, and they were all named Mac. Right, so one would die, then it'd be Mac 2, and then Mac 3, and so on and so forth. And it's actually the running joke in the family that if somebody's dog isn't listening, someone will yell across the field, "Mac, Mac," just because that's how my great grandfather used to yell at his dogs. But no, I got into dogs just because I've always wanted one, right? And as soon as I had the means and a place to keep them, that's when I decided to pull the trigger on a Labrador. And at the time, so Barton Ramsey and I both met through the Dakota Decoys promotional staff. So we were both members of the pro staff for Dakota, and I put out a message randomly one time asking if anyone wanted to come hunt Kansas. Barton raised his hand. I took him on a hunt with a few guys from Tennessee and a couple of buddies of mine from Kansas State, and we banged him up. And one of the guys from Tennessee had never experienced Kansas mallards on a small farm pond before. I don't know if you have either, Josh. Have you experienced that?
I have. Man, I got a lot of my hunting has been done in Kansas. It's
Perfect.
kind of this beautiful hub of waterfowl, but it's
Yeah.
there's been times I've missed it too. If we leave early, everybody always smokes them when we leave early. So I could think of
Yeah.
one farm pond that we left early, snowy day, and they crushed them. I still regret leaving early.
Yeah. I mean, we were landing birds 150 at a time, right?
Oh,
And they
goodness.
were 8-yard shots, right?
Okay,
So
I don't think I've experienced it to that level yet.
yeah, I mean, those are few and far between, right? You might get a couple of those a year. They don't happen regularly. But anyway, take Barton on that hunt. We hunted around Manhattan for a few days, and I got to see his dogs work. And that's when I decided that I was going to get an SOK dog. That was really the beginning of, Barton and I's friendship grown, and we've hunted together a lot since. But I think back in those days, I think Barton had like 5 or 6 dogs total, right? So this is a couple years ago.
Yeah, it's things have changed a little bit since those days.
A bit.
Let's talk about an SOK dog real quick, because
Yeah.
I know you're very high on them, and
Yeah.
I am as well. A well-bred dog, and I think even if we're not even referring just to SOK dogs, I do
Yeah.
think SOK. When you think of it, everybody knows that's a well-bred. That's going to be a good dog.
Right.
And why is it going to be a good dog? Because you're stacking the odds in your favor with genetics and everything. But there's a lot of passion that goes into it. I've known Barton a long time now, and the passion that he puts into. In fact, as we are recording this right now, I saw before we got on here that he made a post. He's on his way over to IGL, and for those that don't know what that is, that's the International Gun Dog League. And a lot of the dogs that are basically all the dogs we run, myself and Barton, are going to come from the lineage over there, because of the level of training that has to happen to achieve the things that they achieve is just remarkable. But it's not just the training itself, it's the obedience. It's the family aspect. Like, these dogs cannot just be a good champion on retrieves. They have to be a good champion in the home as well. And so that same passion he has as he's over there right now, I guarantee you, he's going to be looking at the dogs. He's going to be watching them run. He's going to be paying attention to the details of, okay, I like this tendency or I don't like this tendency. A lot of times the character traits and tendencies you see from the parents will end up being passed down to, the dogs, especially if it's not, if it's kind of cultivated. So that's something to watch out for too when you're picking a puppy is, if there's tendencies you don't like in the parents, it's okay. Just be hyper vigilant on making sure you don't reinforce those so that you diminish that as much as possible. But from your perspective, what made you decide like, hey, was it just because of that connection with Barton early on? I mean, obviously back then you didn't realize the level he's going to be at today. But
Right.
was just something about the way his dogs work, is that what drew you in, said, "That's the type of dog I want"? I would love for just to hear more on that. Like, why did you decide, "I want this dog. I wanna go here with Barton," and what led you to that? Build From Here is brought to you by Retriever Training Supply. Build unforgettable moments with your retriever and equip yourself with the tools to create a lifetime of joy and discovery with your dog. Retriever Training Supply offers the tools you need to train your retriever with confidence. To shop now, visit retrievertrainingsupply.com so that you can strengthen your bond, inspire new adventures, and train with confidence, knowing you have the right tools for your retriever.
Yeah. So there might be a little confirmation bias in this, right? Because I was young whenever I was first getting into it. And I won't say that a British Labrador is the perfect Labrador for everybody, right? It's kind of like there's no perfect fit for any vehicle, right? So if we're being honest, 98% of the hunting population, the British Labrador is perfect for, right? They have everything that I'm looking for. And as far as picking a breeder, go find a guy that's an absolute nerd about genetics, right? So my background back in Southwest Kansas is I grew up around our family farm and ranch. And genetics is something that my grandfather took incredibly seriously when it came to the cow herd, and it's paid dividends long term. And I've been able to see that success with the quality that they produce, and it all comes back down to genetics, right? So we're not only looking at appearance or performance, we're looking at everything all bundled in one, and we're looking for the characteristics that we would really like to see produced, right? And so I'd be the first one to admit that I will describe characteristics that I'm looking for, and then I'll start doing research, right? I'll ask somebody like you or somebody like Barton and say, okay, these are the traits I really enjoy in a British Lab. So like for me, I do a wide array of hunting, ducks, pheasants, big honkers, lessers, specks, snows, all of it. And I need a bigger than average British Labrador for carrying big honkers back through foot tall corn stalks. Not that little dogs can't do it. It's just they can't do it as efficiently as a larger dog can. But at the same time, I'm not a field trial guy, right? Like I'm not a white coat guy. So I don't need the biggest motor I can possibly get. I really like the balance with a British Labrador that has great demeanor and tendencies around the home, super chill. I love that they're tested on their demeanor, right? It's the only real group that is tested on demeanor, right? I love that. I do not like barking dogs. I don't like whining dogs. I like no noise at all. It's kind of like the old adage of what people
Yeah,
used
like
to
that
say
dog
about
right
kids.
there behind you. Yeah, I see
Oh,
right
yeah.
there just sitting
Yeah.
nice.
That 6-month-old Labrador passed out on the chair, right?
Wow.
So, yeah, that's what I'm looking for, right? And what's crazy is this dog behind me, if this was my first dog, he would have been way too much dog for me to handle, right? He has
Yeah.
a huge motor for British Labrador standards. Like that dog has to be worked every day or he won't be like that, right? But those are the things that you learn as you get into training dogs, is that you have certain characteristics and there is give and take with each one of them, right? If you have a higher drive dog in the field, he's probably going to be a little bit higher drive around the house as well, right? And those are just things you have to be honest with yourself about. It doesn't mean they won't learn to be chill and they won't learn to be disciplined. But back to the testing of British Labs, I mean, it's the perfect test for laying the groundwork for the capacity in which they can waterfowl hunt at a high level, right? If I was a snow goose guide and I was planning on them having 100 retrieves a day, I probably wouldn't be going the British Lab route, but I also probably wouldn't have that dog, sleeping in my house. It'd probably be a kennel dog, right? So it's just a balance of finding, what you're looking for out of a Labrador.
That makes perfect sense. And, I feel that's what separates Cornerstone a lot as a whole. Like the vast majority of our people are like you said, they want what you have there, a family companion first.
Yeah.
Like this dog isn't a tool, like as you said, a kennel dog. This dog's a part of the family.
Right.
And it goes out and hunts with us, but it also goes to the lake with us. It goes and does whatever we do. The ballpark, while our kids are playing, all that type of stuff. That's kind of, who we serve a lot. And so it's
100%.
but you're only going to get that, like you said, if that's what you're curating that, but also breeding, that's one thing I would encourage people to is to take breeding seriously. You can make your life easier. You can make your life better because there's a certain flow that happens, whatever dog you get. Every dog has a special, unique gifting, God-given abilities and talents. That's the flow that you're going to go, right? So sometimes you don't want to work against the grain. Like you said, if you look at this dog that's got this high-end motor, you don't necessarily want to stifle that. You just want to find a way to fit it within the bounds of what you're doing. And so I feel like I like what you said there. And let's talk a little more about that. Compare where you're at now to where, the first dog that you talked about there. You said if I'd have had this dog now, I don't know if I'd have done as well because I already had some experience. I would love to just hear a little more about that. Then we'll kind of dive back into the history on picking that first dog, and then we'll round about how we ended on this dog here.
Yeah. So, frankly speaking, it's just he's a much higher drive dog, right? And it wasn't that the other dog didn't have drive; it's just different, right? So, it was absolutely experience based, but it was also time based, right? So now that I'm running a company, there are times that I'm incredibly busy, but I can almost always carve out 30 or 45 minutes in my day. It might be at 1 o'clock, it might be at 6 a.m., it might be at 8 p.m., but I can usually carve out 30 to 45 minutes to train a dog, right? Back when I was a 9-to-5 employee, that wasn't necessarily the case, right? There were times when I'm working dark to dark. And that's actually why that first dog went away to training, is because I was working dark to dark back in my old life. But this dog, a lot of it has to do with understanding how dogs learn today, more so than I knew before, right? I was complete novice with my first dog. I was probably one of the people that inspired you and Barton to start Cornerstone, because I was blowing him up with questions, right? And the biggest deal is like learning what's okay for the dog to get away with at a certain point, right? Are we working towards the skill that we're building, right? So we have a task we want to accomplish. We build skills to accomplish the task, right? And at times before, I was so worried about messing a dog up that I was a complete perfectionist about everything. And like now with this high drive dog, if I was that much perfectionist to start before we laid down the actual skill and reinforced and honed that skill, this dog would get so bored, right? I have to continue to push him on a daily basis. It's amazing. If I give him easy retrieves, he'll give me easy effort. If I push his mental limit, then we're going to achieve at a high level. I think that's probably why this dog is excelling at training the way he is because now with a little bit more experience under my belt, I understand the way the dog's mind works, to where I made a post in Cornerstone this morning about we're going to take a couple steps back. We've already started pattern blind, which is amazing at 6 months old, right? But we're taking a step back and we're just going to make everything bigger, right? So we're breaking out the dummy launchers now. We're doing 150, 200 yard marks with 200 yard memories. and just trying to get that stuff dialed. And I'm just going to keep making it bigger to keep him like mentally engaged.
Smart.
But
Yeah,
I'm
that's
but I'm
good.
going to start, fine tuning everything to where we're getting better lines. We're not shopping bumpers on a memory to pile, right? Things like that I was letting him get away with because we were developing the initial skill. Now we're honing the skill, right? Because, and again, that just goes back to this dog versus my old dog. Moose was a phenomenal gun dog. He's still my favorite gun dog. Probably always will be, just because he was really my first, right? But I would get in a yelling match with that dog, and he would raise his middle finger to me, and it would drive me crazy, right? There were lots of 100-yard marches to have a discussion in the field, right? So it just overall, like, this dog is going to be an absolute rock star. It's cool to watch and be able to guide him in that direction. But it just comes down to understanding the dog, more so than I did when I first started. It's the same way that, I'd probably encourage most novice trainers to probably get a little bit more of a hard-headed dog than you would really like, because it is easy to hurt the feelings of a soft dog. And I've had
That's true.
an incredibly hard dog, I've had an incredibly soft dog, and this dog falls right in the middle, which is right where I'd like to stay.
Yeah. It kind of comes down to a lot of times, like, especially when you're new at something and you're working through it, a lot of times it's easy to overcompensate which is fine. That's part of learning, right? A lot of, like you said, maybe starting with a harder dog might not be a bad thing. Because if you do make a mistake and you've overdone it, then the dog will let you know. But also at the same time, it's nice to have that softer dog too, to where just a little bit of pressure, it gets their attention. Like, okay, we're good to go. We're good to go. But so your first dog after that hunt in connection with Barton, so that came through the Dakota Pro staff.
Yep.
Let's kind of fast forward a little bit. When did Cornerstone come in the picture for you with this dog? Was it right when you got the dog, or?
It was not. So
okay.
Cornerstone was released in, like, I want to say like March, right? Does that sound right?
Yeah,
like March of 2017.
Yep.
Yeah.
Fall
Yep.
Founders Club was, well, actually, so if you bought in March, you got in the Founders Club. April of 2017 is when it went full public. November of 2016 is when it went to the founders, the founding members.
Yeah. So, and I don't remember exactly where I fell into that, but Moose was 6 months old November of 2016.
Yep,
and so at the time, I was building this giant resort hotel out by Denver International Airport, and I was working 5:30 in the morning until 7 o'clock at night every day.
Ooh.
And so obviously I wasn't going to lose the opportunity with the dog to keep him and his momentum moving forward. So I went ahead and I sent him back to Southern Oak Kennels for 3 months for training, to get me basically back to time change. And then I think I got him back. I did. I got him back in February, and we hunted the next day I got him back, which was great.
That's awesome.
He just happened to be, far enough along in training. I got him back at 9 months, and this isn't a typical experience, so let me preface that for everybody. But I worked my tail off with that dog. He went to Barton's guys, already retrieving doubles, and good foundations laid. Place was perfect. Heel work was perfect. Or as perfect as it can be for a 6-month-old, let's be clear. But anyway, it allowed the trainer Brad to really push that dog. And then when I got him back, we were already casting. So took him on his first week of hunts the week I got him back. But so with Cornerstone being, really just getting started about that March, I remember like pestering you guys, being like, so when are we getting the advanced modules out, boys? Because I'm ready for those. But then the next dog I had, I used Cornerstone entirely for the first year of training with that dog. So
Wow.
this is actually my third dog that I'm
third
training.
in Cornerstone. Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. This would be the third. But the second dog, we had a genetic anomaly. We made it through the first year of training and found out that he had a pretty substantial heart murmur, which had made sense as to why he was having a couple of the issues he was having. But that happened, right? Even if you stack the cards in your favor, occasionally you get a bad one.
Yeah.
There's
Man, that's
nothing wrong
unfortunate.
with that, right? It's unfortunate, but it happens.
How did that
And-
first year go with your second dog? So kind of transitioning, doing it all yourself.
Mhm.
How did that, and when was this? Was what are they step-by-step courses out at this time, or are you still following the module
It was
module
following.
series?
It was still module series at that
Okay.
time. This was like 5 or 6 years ago now, something like
Yeah.
that. But yeah, I mean, frankly speaking, I'm not very good at following the plan perfectly. I'm the guy that ingests all the content and then manipulates it to the way I want to do it, right? So what I always tell people is, Cornerstone's an absolutely amazing system. But if you want somebody that's going to follow it to a T, I'm not that guy. Just because I for whatever reason, I'm a challenge the status quo kind of guy. So I just always try to do things a little differently. But all the principles from Cornerstone is where I got the basis for how I train dogs.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't be in business for yourself if that weren't you, and that's the beautiful thing is you can adapt it, you can
Mhm.
make changes and be successful because everything we do is rooted in principle. So as long as if you catch the principles, you're going to win. Now, if you start
Correct.
trying to change the principles, you're going to lose horribly.
Not
But,
only will you
you
lose
get the principles,
horribly,
you'll win.
yeah, and you'll beat bad habits into your dog, whether you're intending to or not. So don't do that. Don't change the principles. Principles are good.
Amen. So let's fast forward. So you trained for a year, and then that kind of stopped there. This dog came along,
Mhm.
I guess, as your next dog. How's
Yeah.
everything gone so far? What's been your experience? Have you done anything differently than you did with your second dog? Or are you kind of staying on track with what you've been doing? How's it seems like, I mean, if y'all are already expanding distance at this point, it seems like y'all are doing some good stuff.
Yeah. More so is just, continuing all the fundamentals I learned with the first dog, right? And there were mistakes I made and bad habits I created just by being a first time trainer. For example, like lining drills, I have a completely different sequence than I used to have, right? So before I just line the dog and send the dog, now I will line the dog and then tell it good, right? Like there's your hold,
Hmm.
right? There's a line we're going to hold. And then I'll tell them to go back, right? Whereas before, if I was just running a memory, not thinking about the future, I would have just released the dog on its name, right? Just like little things like that you learn from making that mistake in the past. Because then I'm telling the dog, like, hey, this is a memory or you don't know, right? So, like, right now it's a memory. But as we get into more advanced blind work, like right now, we're doing memory to pile where the dog can basically see the pile, right? We're
Yeah.
just getting those fundamentals down. But you keep that sequence, right? So you tell the dog, you don't know where this is, right? And that's the dead bird command. So, all right, dead bird, good, go back, right? That is my memory release today. Whereas before it was just dog's name. And what I didn't realize at the time was I'm telling this dog that there's a mark out there and you should have seen it, right? And in reality, it wasn't a mark, and I'm just telling it two different things. So now there's a differentiation between a memory / blind and a mark, right? Mark is name release, and memory / blind is dead bird, good, go back.
That's good stuff. Yeah. Yeah. You
Yeah.
learn a lot along the way. It's all in
Yeah.
the details. Sometimes it's hard to get all the details as you go because you're drinking through the fire hose, especially if you've never done it before. I will say, I do believe It's never been easier now with the step-by-step nature of the updated courses for those that do the step-by-step, because we did
Absolutely.
show a dog that has never had any training. So you get to see what it looks like when the wheels run off, and that tend to happen a lot. Miss Violet gave me a run for my money, which is a good thing. Everybody always tells me, "Man, I'm just so happy Violet was like that." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
glad you're happy about that."
Yeah.
It was a challenge for me, but it was a good challenge.
Yeah. Well, and I can't imagine training a dog with all the distractions of a camera crew around. Right,
Yeah,
like, that
that
just
made it
takes it to
challenging.
that just makes it a whole new level of challenging because, like, my wife will even ask me to take the kids, go train the dog. It's like, "Can't do that yet." Like,
Yep.
"Give me a minute with this dog. We have to be one-on-one here. We have to be intent." Um, we're getting to the point where we can start introducing bigger distractions, and it'll reinforce the training, but that fresh puppy with, those distractions would not make this an easy task.
No, and I understand what you're saying with the kiddos now too. I train my dogs with the kids, and they're fantastic distractions. Running all over the place, throwing stuff when you're not supposed to. I'll say,
Yeah.
take the bumper out there, go throw it, and they throw it now. That's perfect steadiness, throwing it 2 feet in front of the dog. But yeah, the camera thing, and I would say one of the biggest challenges with it was talking to the camera because we filmed everything live action as it happened, and kind of narrating, but also basically doing two things. I'm teaching you, teaching the dog at the same time. That became challenging, and Violet was pretty sharp. She kind of figured that out. She said, "Okay, if he's trying to talk to them on the camera, then I'm gonna see what I can get away with here." So
Yep,
you definitely give me a
yep,
run for the money there.
absolutely. That is exactly where my head went. Because again, these higher drive dogs, right? Like, they want to please, but if they don't have their mind completely, utilized, if their entire bandwidth is not utilized, they're gonna try and figure out how to get away with something,
Yeah,
right? That's just part of
yeah.
intelligence, right? Kids are the same way, right? You have a smart kid, probably gonna try and be sneaky at some point. It's just about how you, guide them into making the correct decisions, right? So, same thing with dog.
That's a good nugget. I think we need to unpack that a little bit. I like what you said about the bandwidth, the entire bandwidth. A
Mhm.
lot of time I find that people, when they're looking at their dogs, they think they're coming from their human perspective when they're thinking about the challenges they face with their dog. Right? As humans, we're more logical. We think through things, like we analyze it from all kinds of different perspectives. Dogs are very not they don't do that, right? They're very much instinctive in nature, which means it's kind of, like a fish when you're dangling a lure in front of it. It's either going to bite it or it's not. It just happens quickly. So same thing with the dog. So if you're facing challenges with your dogs, it's, it comes down to what you just said. Is the bandwidth being fully used or is it not? And most of the time, dogs are never malicious and trying to, get on your nerves or do something they shouldn't do. Most of the time, it just happens that that's the way the situation was set up. But that's kind of a big thing to unpack because I think a lot of people miss that because they're viewing their dog from their perspective, thinking, "Oh, well, this dog must be thinking all of these things." In reality, the dog's not thinking much. It's kind of more focused on one thing after another. That's why if you delay your correction timing or you delay your timing on anything, it doesn't land right. And therefore, the dog doesn't receive either the correction or the reward if it's not in the right time because the dogs have already moved on to the next thing.
Right, and that's another thing that you learn as you train dogs too, is how to accurately mark stuff, right? And, like, for an example, like last week, I think, there was a guy that posted a video in the Cornerstone app, doing heel work, right? And there wasn't a snug lead, right? There was a lot of slack, and when that dog would drop his nose, it takes longer to react to give that accurate correction, and so it takes a lot longer for them to understand what you're trying to give them and the way you're trying to guide them, right? So it just comes down to the way I look at it anyway, is I try to dogs are pack animals, right? They understand three tones. They understand a whine, they understand a bark, they understand a growl, right? And then at the same time, they uh they really think almost in binary, right? It's either good or bad.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of wiggle room in there and there is a little bit of thinking required by them. But I mean, that's in my mind how we break down every single task that we're trying to get to, every skill, right? It's like, all right, well, if he wants to do this, I'm going to make him do that because he's going to find success because I'm pointing him in this direction, right? And just thinking about it from that perspective as opposed to, I want my dog to heel. And say, okay, well, if I want my dog to heel, let's walk through like how we get there. Um, are we getting eye contact from that dog? Are we getting the dog to look to us for direction? Things of that nature, as opposed to, I'm just going to drag this dog at heel until it comes to heel. I mean, eventually you'll probably get the dog there, right? But not out of respect. He'll do it out of, fear, right?
Yep.
And that's not what you want, right? You might get the compliance that you're looking for, but you're not developing a relationship in that fashion, right? That's why, the clicker training is fantastic because, that is a positive aspect of the training. You put a slip lead on them, there's a little bit of negative reinforcement there, but it's just so easy to mark the bad behavior. And I think marking good behavior is just as important as marking bad behavior and vice versa, right? Just based on how the dog learned, right? Those
Absolutely.
harder dogs, like my first dog, if there wasn't negative reinforcement, he wouldn't listen. He didn't care. Right. So it's kind of a catch-22. There's no perfect system. And a lot of it is about reading the dog in front of you and understanding how they think and learn.
Yeah, if you can grasp that concept, you can win. And it comes down to, just like you said, good reward timing, but also good negative reinforcement timing, because you got to do it, right? With a lead,
Mhm.
whatever you're using. If you happen to be using an e-collar, if you use it at the wrong time, you've really just messed up.
Oh, yeah.
If you do it at the right time, that's great. I do, that's why I think early on, clicker and treat, the way we train is so good, because you can, a lot of people will run into a problem. Man, my dog's not doing this. Right? When they start with a clicker and treat, and they're kind of doing, it's just the timing's a little off. The dog's just doing this instead. Well, that's actually what you're rewarding. So you get to learn
Mhm.
from that. Then you shift it, and all of a sudden, wow, the dog gets it. Versus, if you're going straight force early on, and you make a mistake, you really limit your dog's that relationship. And I like what you said
Yep.
about the relationship is what we're going for. You want to
Right.
have that good relationship with a
Right.
dog.
Right.
How would you describe um, the relationship with your dog currently, with the way you train, um, focusing on that, because, a lot, it's not just do the task. It's, you said a good word, developing that respect. How would
Mhm.
you describe that? And maybe you've probably learned a lot from the original, right? From that first dog to the second to the third dog. Now you take a different approach. You take a more
Yeah.
relaxed approach, which gets that dog that connection.
100%. Well, and I kind of have to go back to dogs being pack animals, right? Like if you're not alpha to your dog, you're not going to get anywhere, right? Like for example, I walk into the room and this dog is misbehaving with my wife, and I have to get on her like, you're not alpha with that dog. And there are plenty of people that don't like hands on any animals, but the whole thing, you have to understand how dogs understand pecking order, right? And so when that puppy's really young and he's misbehaving, I'm not talking about slamming a dog, nothing like that. I turn him over onto his belly and I will pin him the same way that a dog will pin another dog into submission, right? And there's nothing abusive about it. There's nothing aggressive about it. It is just turning them over, making them submit, right? And when I do that early on, we have established that we're friends until I'm not allowed to be your friend anymore, right? Um, and again, there's no malicious intent behind any of that. It's just how dogs understand. They're pack animals, right? There's one alpha in the pack. They might be below, the alpha level. They might be below the alpha female, right? But they understand their pecking order, right? So like right now we have this dog, and it happens with every puppy, especially with kids around, is the dog will try to jostle with the kids as to advance themselves in the pecking order of your quote unquote pack around your house, right? Where everyone listens to mom and dad, but I don't feel like I need to listen to these kids because they're not my boss, right? So, with me having young kids, it's a little bit more difficult. But if my kids were 7 or 8 years old, I'd be having them do the exact same thing. Turn the dog over, pin it down, wait till it submits, let it up, and praise it, right? Like, it listened. So that's one way that I start garnering respect, right? So I don't think that you can, but it's a lot more difficult. Establish the respect without the fear of retribution a little bit. It's kind of, it goes all the way back to the Bible, right? You can't spare the child of the rod, right? Discipline is discipline, and it doesn't matter what we're talking about. There has to be disciplinary action in every aspect of life, right? We all experience day to day. Your dog is no different. So establishing that you're alpha early, I think, is very important. But then also, you show them that whenever they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, they get rewards, right? And early on, it's treats. Later on, like now we've made the transition that all of his rewards are retrieves, right? And so he does what he's supposed to do, he gets a retrieve. He doesn't do what he's supposed to do, there will be a reprimand and or no retrieve, right? And so you just build that relationship to where the dog starts to truly trust you, right? Like when this dog's a year old, he'll go through an adolescence phase where there will absolutely be a middle finger in the air, and he'll say, "I know more than you do. I'm not going to listen," and we'll have to duke it out. As far as the jostling for position of, I just won't let him pick it up. We'll just recall and recall and recall and recall until I get exactly what I want from the dog, just through attrition. But you can't have that relationship without establishing from a very young age that I'm the boss. This life is great as long as you listen, right? And I think if you do that, you'll be successful in training your dog. And it doesn't matter if it's a waterfowl retriever, if it's a pointer, or if it's just a house pet, right? I give this advice to all of my buddies that just come over and they're amazed at how disciplined my dogs are. And I'll be frank with them. It's like, you don't have it in you to have a dog that's this disciplined because you're not willing to not be your dog's friend at some point. And you have to have discipline, period.
I'm glad you brought that up. Leadership requires that. And that's what you got to lead the dog well. And, but also, a lot of people, like you said, some people are afraid to discipline the dogs, and maybe it's because they don't know. And then sometimes you find someone on the opposite end, they let things keep going on, and on the third or fourth time, they go and they correct it, and then they wait. And then the next time, it's on the second, third, or fourth time again. In reality, when you're working these dogs, if you don't like something, you should correct it minute one. And and correction depends on the dog, depends on the situation, all kinds of different things. But correcting it quickly goes a long way. And as you said, I'm really glad you brought this up. It's just a good concept. I'm sure everybody listening to this is appreciating it right now, because I think you're getting some good nuggets. The last 3 minutes of what Marshall just said was fantastic. But rewarding and then disciplining go hand in hand. And it's also clear communication. If you're choosing to reward, but you're choosing to correct, depending on the circumstance, that's clearly communicating to the dog, this is what I'm looking for. And that's strong and good leadership. That's not bad. And there are times, like, there are certain non-negotiables, right? Jostling with the kids, right? That's going to require discipline, and quick, swift discipline. The sooner you do it, the better. The faster you do it, the better, rather than letting it drag on. Because a lot of times it's not a big deal. If you let something happen and go on for, weeks or months, then you've created a habit. And now when you discipline it, it's going to require repeated discipline over and over for the dog to finally get it. Because up until that point, from the dog's perspective, you've allowed that to happen, so the dog thinks it's okay. So you get to choose what is okay and what is not okay. And I find a lot of people are learning to navigate those waters of, okay, you create the environment, you create the rules, and then it's up to you to enforce and make sure the dog listens to that. And I think, it goes a long way. So I'm really glad you brought that up, because I hope that helps a lot of people, especially if you're dealing with puppies and stuff that you don't like. And obviously there's different levels that you're going to do it at. An 8-week-old, 9-week-old puppy is not going to perceive and receive things the same way a 6 and 8-month-old dog is either. So you got to play the game with the level of dog you currently have.
Well, and the one thing I would add to what you just said is, if you let them get away with something even 3 or 4 times and then you correct them on the 4th time,
Yep.
you're confusing the dog.
100%.
Right? All you did was dig a bigger hole, because now he's confused. He doesn't understand why you're upset now, because you weren't upset the last 3 times it happened. Whereas if you see that negative behavior the first time and you mark that negative behavior, then he knows, I can't do that. And then the next time he does it and you mark that behavior, I can't do that. And so you're just putting the guardrails up that bounces them between. It's like having bumpers in bowling, right?
Yeah.
Like they're going to bump each gutter, and it's your job just to keep them out of the gutter, right? And you can narrow those bumpers as you progress in training, to where, like what I was talking about earlier, I allowed this dog to shop bumpers on piles, on memory to pile, because I'm just trying to stretch this dog at this point, right? And as soon as he's stretched and he's confident going back, that's when I'm going to hone that skill, and then shopping is no longer going to be allowed, right? But I didn't let shopping go on, a long time. It was mostly like 2 days. I've got to get that dog back, right? And I'm more concerned with the distance that I am, with the shopping aspect of it at the other end for that period of time. And then we checked off the box of, I need to get him back there. Now let's correct the other thing that's going on. But you can't correct both things at one time. We have 100%. To pick one thing at a time. And so that's why I like that analogy of, if you're at a bowling alley and you have bumpers over the gutters to start, then you remove the bumpers and you start narrowing the lane, right? To where there's way less leeway. And pretty soon you have a straight line. And that's exactly what we're looking for.
This is good stuff, man. You can tell you've been doing this for a few years now. That's awesome.
I'm still no pro trainer like you, Josh. I'm just one
we're
of
all
those
still learning.
one of those lowly novices running around.
At Cornerstone, we believe that those lowly novices are where it's at. We know, or I'm confident that if someone like you takes your dog and you train it yourself, you can get the best results that way, because you care the most. You're going to put the most time, the love into it, and that's what produces the best results. Not to say you're going to get good results doing anything other ways. There's lots of great ways to do it, and you have to. And if you rewind to what you did, when you were working more, you've got to make the right decision for your dog. And I would always encourage someone to do that. Hey, if you don't have the time, send your dog off, but find the right person. Don't just send it off to someone random. Don't be cheap. Invest in your dog, right? And find the right people who do the right thing. Or if you've got the time, and fortunately, it doesn't take a lot of time. If you can do, like you said, 20 or 30 minutes, 3 or 4 days a week, you can have a great dog. You're going to win over time. You just got to make the good decisions. I want to hit on something. I was going to go one direction, but now that we're here, I just think we should go another direction. And that's because of what you just brought up. You brought up some very fine details and the nuances of training. And, someone listening to this that maybe if you rewind to where you were when you got your first dog, you might be listening to this, oh man, I don't know if I'm going to be able to figure all that out, right? Well, obviously you have figured it out over time, but I want to kind of bring in a way that is easier for people to figure out, and that's the community aspect, right? We actually just launched you've got a chapter up there in your area, Kansas City, Kansas. We've got a chapter up there, and I think that is a great way to have, just something to talk about. And I would love to hear your perspective on community, because in fact, this whole thing has happened with you. The whole dog thing's always been about community. You met Barton, and you've kind of been connected to the community from the very beginning. But let's talk about that. Maybe shed some light on some of the lessons you've learned along the way, and maybe just having someone over your shoulder being, hey, maybe try this, and how that's helped you. Because, if someone new is listening to this, like, man, all that sounds good. I'm definitely grasping it, but I'm a little overwhelmed on how to apply it. And I never want anyone to be overwhelmed on that, because one thing is, and you could shed some light on this, I'm sure, you didn't figure this stuff out that you know now by just saying, well, I'm not going to learn. You kind of are passionate about it, and you went all in, and you said, I'm going to figure this out. And you made some mistakes along the way. And
100%.
our goal is never to avoid mistakes. Our goal is to focus on doing the right thing. And then along the way, when you make the mistakes, you realize that doesn't line up with the right thing, and you make those changes. But I think a big part of that's community. So let's talk about that, man. What's Cornerstone's community, just the overall dog community, meant to you, and how is that basically attributed to get you to where you're currently at today with your dog? And on your third dog doing well and moving in the right direction with it?
Right. So I think first of all, you have to start with it's okay to suck at something, right? Like Tiger Woods wasn't the Tiger Woods we knew the first time he swung a golf club, right? It's all about development, right? And if you can be honest with yourself and accepting that you need help and that you don't know, um, you're already light years ahead of where a lot of people start. Like if you don't know, then you don't know, and it's okay not to know. It's just not okay to go on without knowing, right? Like you have to figure it out. Um, the community, within Cornerstone, I mean, so prior to Cornerstone, there was the Southern Oak Kennel Society, which basically functioned as Cornerstone for just Southern Oak Kennel people, right? And that's where I really got my first, piece of dog training community, giving tips and tricks and have you thought about this kind of situation. Then we progressed into Cornerstone's Facebook page. Um, and again, same thing, right? And what's interesting is you'll get somebody that just joined and they'll have a question and they won't know where to go, right? And the cool part that happens in these communities is the guy that knew nothing 3 years ago can now help them at a level that is really uncomprehendable, because they've been through it, they've done it, they're happy to provide advice. There is one issue with communities, and that is the guy that's trained one dog thinks that they're an expert in dog training, right? That is certainly an issue, because every dog is different, right?
Mhm.
I mean, and hell, I'll admit it. I was one of those guys, right? You're like, oh, I've been there. I'm excited. I want to help you. And so you give a pointer, and turns out that it worked for your dog, but it might not work for another dog, right? Um, and that's just kind of the nature of the beast, right? You're going to run into that, but the community is incredible, right? Getting together, training with people. There is no better way to advance a dog, than with training with other people, in my opinion. Just reinforces steadiness. There's no better denial than watching another dog pick up a bird, right? Hands down, no better denial. Uh, it allows you to be hands-on with your dog while somebody else is running their dog. That's incredible, right? Because like when you send your dog away to training and that trainer has 6 dogs out on dog stands and your dog misbehaves, he can't correct your dog and run the other dog at the exact same time. Whereas if you're training your own dog and you're getting together to do group training, you have your dog 100% of the time. So you have your hands on your slip lead, or you have the ability to make a verbal correction right away, right? Those are invaluable things for building not only the confidence, but also the relationship. And then again, marking good and bad behavior with your dog, right? Like if your dog's sitting at heel with you and this dog just watched you know a triple mark with a blind, and he has to sit still and be quiet, and he does that effectively, like, good, right? Good dog. um and just again, just building that confidence that we're doing the right thing, we're doing the wrong thing, whatever. We're marking good and bad behavior when we're doing that. But then beyond group training aspects of it, questions, frustrations, I mean, gear, right? Like even gear. When you first start, you're like, what dog vest do I buy? Right? Like what kennel is the right kennel? Do I need to buy a gunner kennel? Or like, what's my situation? Do I need an outdoor kennel? No, maybe. I don't know. Depends on your situation. But like getting all of that feedback from everybody is very good. And I think, you know, to the point that I brought up, like there are always going to be the people that give their opinion and you'd rather they didn't. That's part of it. But then you also learn that there are people that are giving really good nuggets and are happy to help you. And it just helps develop relationships. I mean, some of my best friends are people that I met through the outdoor industry, right? We might live in different parts of the country, but we still talk every week, right? And just building that community is irreplaceable.
That's awesome, man. I'm glad
Yeah.
that it's meant so much for you, and
Yeah.
it's meant a lot for our members, I believe, and for myself even. I'm really excited. We'll kind of start to land the plane here because I can't. I was looking at the time. We've almost been going an hour. I can't even believe it. It just goes by so quick.
Oh, yeah.
We'll have to do another one, a follow up. So you've got 6-month-old back behind you. We're gonna have to follow up at about a
Oh, yeah.
year after this past hunting season, and then next year we'll do a follow up and see where it's at, how you're feeling. But also, I want to follow up in the future so your chapter, as of the recording of this, the Kansas City chapter. Let's talk about that. What you're
Yeah.
most excited about, and then we'll kind of land the plane on some final advice that you could share with someone.
Yeah. So, my biggest deal with the Kansas City chapter is giving some others some opportunity that I was gifted whenever I was first getting started, right? Which is a great place to go and train. I've been very fortunate to be able to put together some pretty crazy training grounds just outside of the Kansas City metro. Um, and it's still developing. It'll be really cool. I might have to host a Cornerstone event there in the future. I'm actually in the process of
Sweet.
building a big VRBO property that'll sleep 24. It's a giant barn dominium.
Oh man,
But then me and a few buddies have a quarter ground outside of Kansas City that used to be an old tree farm. So on that piece of property, we have 3 ponds. I mean, we can get as technical as you want. On the bigger pond, it's like 7 acres, and we can run. I mean, crazy marks. I think the craziest one I've set up out there was land, water, land, water, land. Um, right, and I mean,
nice.
you can push dogs to advanced stuff out there, but then also, for guys that have young dogs, I've got lunge water. We have um, kind of technical peninsulas to train on. And then the cool thing that's unique about this property is since it was a tree farm in its past life, all the trees are planted in perfectly straight rows. And
Wow,
so when it comes down to teaching casting and T drills, whenever you're starting off like a novice dog, I can send dogs down a hallway, right?
that's
It's thick
wonderful.
on either side, and we have 200 yards of a straight run that the midpoint has a cross section that I've cut out, right? And so we can run T and double T through a hallway to just start that dog off, and we can reinforce. Hey, if you don't stop whenever I blow this whistle, you're going to blow past your hallway. All right. So when I say stop, it means stop. Otherwise, you're going to be confused, right? So we can really build on that stuff, but then also, technical cover and everything else. So it'll be a lot of fun to have everyone out. So look forward to meeting other new people in Kansas City that I haven't had the privilege of meeting yet. But yeah, should be a good time. We'll try and get together once a month or so and do some training out there.
That's awesome, man. That's what we've been doing in the Birmingham chapter about once a month. At this point, we've been doing once a month. Actually, had a new guy come out. He's actually not a new guy. He's been in Cornerstone for 3 or 4 years. Just the first time he's ever been able to come to one of the events. He was out here. His name's Riley. Great dude. He was able to train with us this past weekend, and it was a great training day. We did a mock hunt setup just kind of because we had some people getting ready to go do some goose and duck hunting. So I was
Yep.
like, man, let's make this fun. We'll put out the decoys. We'll go the whole 9 yards, and it was fun by the end of that day. I mean, especially in small groups, member weekend's amazing. And but there's 50, 60 plus dogs and we still divide everybody up in groups, but at these training days, you got 4, 5, 6 dogs. When you're in that type
Hmm.
of group, the amount of work your dog gets it's unbelievable, especially in 2 to 3
Right.
hours of training. That dog is going to get a lot, and yourself, you're going to get a lot of work.
Yeah, well, and the big thing there is, going back to bandwidth, right? Is even if you have that advanced dog, you put them in that environment where they're going to tend to want to be competitive. y- you can leapfrog a dog to a different level in a group training situation, right? As you know. And I
Yep.
love watching that happen. You go to a group training, and I remember being, the guy that had never been to group training before, and then you take your dog, and you're like, whoa, this dog's different now. Like, he's more focused than he's ever been. He's more deliberate because there wasn't competition before. And I love that competitive aspect of a dog. But it can also be a negative thing, right? So that's the beautiful part of getting them introduced to being around multiple dogs before you go and hunt the dog with multiple dogs, right? Um, and that's a step that's missed. And then you have, the good old fashioned bird thief, right? You don't want that, right? So no, there is nothing better for developing a dog once you get to a more intermediate to advanced level than group training. It's fantastic.
Well, I appreciate you for stepping up to the plate and leading that chapter, because I know the people
Happy.
in the Kansas City area are going to be very grateful for that. It's like we just said. I mean, you can't get any better than training in a group of people and making things happen. We are up on time, so I want to end with what's your last piece of advice. If you could give one just strong nugget specifically to someone maybe getting started, like yourself back in the day, like what would you say? Like, hey, here's my 1 minute spiel. Here's what you should do. Here's my encouragement for you.
Consistency, right? So number one is consistency. Be consistent on training, be consistent on discipline, be consistent on reward. Everything is consistent for that dog every single day, right? As much time and as many people as you can get that dog around, do it, but be consistent. Just because you're in a crowd doesn't mean that they get to get away with things, right? So pick your crowds wisely. I wouldn't suggest a art fair to take your dog to for the very first time, because you're probably going to need to get after this puppy a bit, right? So be intelligent about that, but consistent, right? Anything you can do consistency wise for a dog is going to pay dividends in the long run. So be consistent. And then if you don't know something, ask a question, right? And there's no better place to ask that question than in the Cornerstone group, where somebody that knows what they're doing is going to get back to you.
Man, good advice. I like it. And man, thanks for hopping on. I appreciate you and excited to see where the next 7 to 10 years goes here. I'm excited about that pup you got back behind you. You got a legacy right there. We're going to turn it into something, and appreciate you for being on, man.
Oh, I appreciate you, Josh. Thanks for everything you guys do. Cornerstone's amazing.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Build From Here podcast. To learn more about retriever training or our podcast, visit cornerstonegundogacademy.com/podcast.